While diving into generative AI models, exploring their capabilities, and pushing the limits of what they can do, a challenge popped into my mind. What if we could manage any database just by using natural language? To address the challenge that I set to myself, I had to dive deep into LLMs, understanding their mechanism and exploring how to leverage them. After a few days of experimentation, I built a powerful CLI tool that lets you chat directly with your database using OpenAI models. Through this journey, I've learned many things, and in this video, I will share those insights with you. You will see AI isn't as complex as it seems. Hello everyone, here's Osama Zarga speaking. I'm a computer engineer, and today I'm super excited to introduce you to a tool that I built using OpenAI that's going to maybe change the way you think about database interactions. The source code of this tool is available on GitHub. You will find the link in the description below. You can check it later, no problem. So let's kick things off with a quick 60-second demo to see this tool in action. I'm starting with connecting the tool to an empty database, and together we will build a complete to-do list database from scratch with its assistance. Are you ready? Let's go! Okay, so let's start. npm run start go. Create me a table called tasks. Suggest me the table structure. Go ahead, apply it. So now it has executed the query for us. Show me the tables in my database. And it tells me that we have table task. It's a good idea. So we create a table task. What if we create a to-do list application? So on that table I have, can you complete a page by creating required tables for a to-do list application? Let's see. We'll create user table, category table, command table. Would you like me to execute? Yes, please execute. The tables have been created successfully. What a miracle. List me all the tables. Good. So now we have task categories, community, task, and task completion. Okay, list me all the users. I have no user. It's not bad news, but I will create 10 users. Use famous American actors. And please add Emma Stone. Okay, we have Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks, etc. Yes, please add the users. List me all the users. Go. Run. Cool. So now we have all the users on the database. Create a new column called gender, and please complete it automatically from the genders of the users. Okay, cool. He has understood that Emma Stone is female. Good news. Tom Hanks is male. Yes, please execute. Great. Cool. So here I have the complete list, and show me the ratio of females versus males in the table users. So we have 6 males versus 4 females. Let me a CSV extract from this table. It has generated for us a CSV. Very nice. I have to say, I'm seriously impressed by how well AI understands our requests and executes the right queries for us. I've run many other tests with more complex databases and schemas, and the results were absolutely incredible. I invite you to test it yourself and make your own opinion. Imagine the time this can save us. Whether you need to quickly debug a database, check an important information, or simply extract the latest customers or orders from your website, this AI-powered tool proves how AI is making our life easier. It understands our request as it interprets natural language accurately. It guides you through the process, assisting the user with a step-by-step, providing clear explanation and suggestion. It generates accurate SQL queries, translate requests into precise SQL without requiring the user to have SQL expertises. And it remembers the context efficiently by retaining previous interactions. It provides context-aware conversation and SQL queries. But before we dive deeper and answer the big question that maybe pops on your mind right now, I want to point out that the project is completely experimental. You can run it in production, but hey, that's on your own risk. So, how does this actually work? This tool is built with Node.js, TypeScript, and integrates OpenAI API. We are using the ChatGPT 4o Mini for the demo, but you can use any other model you want. After pulling the project, please remember to put your OpenAI API key on the .env file. Behind the scene, this assistant operates as a CLI application, continuously processing user inputs, executing operations, preparing responses, and outputting them to the client. It keeps looping until you decide to end. I will focus especially on the AI-driven part of the project, as I believe it's the most crucial component. This flowchart breaks down the AI component of the tool. As you can see, the workflow is structured into clear steps, each with a specific rule. Let's break the workflow down. So first we have the input stage. This is the entry point of the workflow where the user's message is captured and converted into a string for processing. After this, we run the first request. It's an API call to OpenAI. At this stage, we send a well-crafted prompt to OpenAI, specifying the tools that the LLM can use to generate an accurate response. Here, the model will have to take a decision. Does the model need a tool or not? If yes, the model will determine that an SQL query is required before responding to the user. If no, the model has all the necessary information and can generate a direct response, routing it directly to the output. But wait, what exactly are tools and how do they work? Let's check out OpenAI documentation for a deeper dive. So a tool or a function calling, according to OpenAI, it enables a model to fetch data and take action. So as you see here on OpenAI documentation, tools make it possible to fetch and retrieve up-to-date data to incorporate them into a model's response using something that we call RAG. RAG is Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is useful, for example, for searching for fresh information or to call a function that will make some calculation for us. Also, it can be helpful for taking action. For example, we need to call an API to make a reservation, for example. So as you see on the documentation of OpenAI, they are explaining how tools should be defined. It's on your responsibility to fill it with the right informations because the model will rely on these informations to take its final decision. So for example, they're talking about a tool that it helps you to get weather. So on the description, we should always mention what this tool can be helpful for, especially for the LLM, and what it can take as parameters. And also we have to mention all the required options, all the required properties, so the LLM prefill them for us to make the call. So after these tools are provided to the LLM, it will use them each time it needs it. For example, here they're taking an example where they define a get weather tool that's a function that will help us to retrieve the weather, and they're testing it with an example where the user asks the LLM to calculate the weather in Paris today, for example. The LLM here will answer as something like this. It will provide us a kind of JSON where we have the function that the LLM will need to retrieve the weather. So here we have the function, it's get weather, and it sends us the arguments that we will need so we can perform the calculation. Once the calculations are made, we have to send this information back to OpenAI so it can craft its response and push it to the client. We see this example pretty in action. In fact, the developer will craft its prompt, including all the tools that we need, and also passing them the user request. The model will retrieve this and will answer that it has to call the get weather function for me. So the application should execute the function for the model and then send back the response to the model. So we send all the chat history with the response of the function. Then the model will retrieve this and will craft the output to the user. So finally, the model will answer the user telling that it's currently 14 degrees in Paris. So this example illustrates exactly what tools are useful for. Tools are currently implemented in OpenAI, but also integrated in Llama models and also Mistral. So it's becoming like an interface today for all LLMs. Once we understand this, now we can go back to our flow to explain how I've put all of this in action so our model can send the query and we have to run for it. So let's see how the first use case is working. So here I will prompt to my tool, provide me with the list of all the tables. So in this case, I ask the AI to list all the tables in the connected database. Since the database schema is already included in the prompt, as you see here on the first request, the model doesn't need to perform an SQL query. As a result, it will skip the tool execution and directly provides the correct response in the output. As you see here, we have no need for a tool, so we directly output the response to the client. In the second use case, I will ask the LLM for an information that it doesn't know. So I will tell him, provide me with the list of my customers. So here, things are getting different. We are asking the model for information it doesn't inherently know. It's not trained or fine-tuned with. So what's going to happen here? The model determines that it must use the tool and to execute the SQL query according to our prompt where we defined all the tools. Then it will generate us a tool response with an SQL that we can run. And this is what is exactly happening here on this step. We will run the generated query. The model then interprets the query result and formats the final accurate response for the user. As you see here, we have another extra step where we update the schema. And I will tell you why. Sometimes we can ask the tool to maybe alter the table. So this will change the table structure or the table or the database schema. We can ask it to delete the table. So this will also impact the database schema. So we have to make another call to the database and update our prompt. So the next time we make a call, the model will have a fresh schema of the database. As you see here, we mentioned the prompt with the red color. I think the prompt is one of the most important part of, or one of the most cool parts of AI projects, because everything is in the prompts, in fact. So how the prompt is designed, especially for this project. To answer this question, I will open the source code with you and show you how I crafted the prompt so it answers our questions. So as you see here, I'm now on GitHub and I will show you the source code of how the prompt is designed. So let's go to the config.ts file, and here on the line 17 we will find a function called SQL Assistant Prompts that takes a database schema as a string. So our prompt is divided on 4 principal parts, and I will tell you why. So on the first part, we will tell our model to be like an SQL assistant. So we will tell I will tell him what is its principal role, what is its general role. And then the second part, I will tell him to consider the following PostgreSQL database schema. So this is the part of the schema that I pass on the parameter. And on the third part, I will tell him what are the rules that he should respect. And the last part, I will tell him what are the general guidelines that I wish he can respect. So the cool thing about this prompt is that we are no longer writing code. In fact, we are just talking to the model. I just explain him what I wanted to do, and I give him inputs and I give him rules, and then it will always act according to this prompt. Okay, sometimes the model doesn't properly interact with, we don't have the right interaction. This is because we weren't exhaustive in the context, so sometimes it can understand what we want to do, so it becomes very creative. Or sometimes maybe the model needs fine-tuning, so it can be more accurate, it can be more direct to respond to our need. Let's dive deeper on this prompt. So as you see here, I'm telling him that you are a helpful SQL assistant. You help the user to interact with the database, generate queries based on the user request, and retrieve data information from the database and tables. Here I will mention him the database schema, and then within the rows we will have always ask for user confirmation before executing a create or update, alter or deleting query. So each time it will drastically, let's say, update the database schema, it will ask for permission. So once he have the permission, he will send you the right tool response. I will tell him to, one of the rules is to try to use queries most of the times and execute them. So always try to use queries, so we don't have to overanalyze, in fact, the prompt. So if there's something that can be answered with SQL query, please pass it to me. When you suggest a query to the user, always ask him if he wants you to execute it. This is very important because sometimes models are very suggestive, so they will maybe suggest you an SQL query that will help you to optimize your database. Maybe it will ask you to add an index, etc. So it's very important to tell him that to add a final instruction asking the user if you want him to run the query for you. This is very helpful. Always suggest best practices for the user. So always act like an expert, in fact. This one is very important. The default limit on the select is 10 rows. If the user wants more, he can ask for more. I've put this rule because I know sometimes when we query databases, we can have an infinite number of rows. So the query will be very huge and the response is going to be huger. So we have to then send back this response to the model. So it will take, I think, days to analyze. So as a security, I added this limit. It's 10 rows first. So if it's okay for you, so if you want just to have an overview, 10 rows should be okay. But if you want more, so you have to tell it in an explicit way that you want more than 10 rows. When listing the data, always MD table format with headers and rows. So this is very important because sometimes it provides you with HTML, it can provide you with XML. So I tell him that I would like it to be markdown text, especially for the tables with headers and rows. When you generate a query, please also optimize it for performance and readability. This is very important too. For the general guidelines, so here I'm telling him what is general, in fact. So don't answer questions that are not related to your role as an SQL assistant. So this will prevent you from answering like political question or something that has nothing to say with the database you're using. Be consistent and helpful. Be short. Don't be verbose. This is very important. OpenAI, LLM are very verbose when you don't tell them how to interact, because they are very strong and they have a big knowledge. So it's very important to tell them to be helpful and don't be verbose, because we want to go straight to the goal. Then here we have, let's say, the tool that we are sending to the LLM. So as you see, it's a very simple function. It's called getDatabaseQuery. And on the description, it's pretty straightforward. I tell him to generate the SQL query to solve the problem. This includes only select, insert, update, delete, create SQL commands. If the problem is not related to the database, don't use this tool. So here I'm restricting him to only use this tool when the problem can be solved using the listed queries. If there's another query, don't use it. Of course, you can update this later as you want, so you can add a lot of number of commands that you want to use. As parameter, I will need the problem. Explain me the problem you are solving. And on the second parameter, I will tell him I will need the SQL query. So the SQL query to solve the problem. This is very important because we have to remember why we've run the command. So I believe it's always important to provide us with this information. So both of them are required, and don't add any additional properties. This flag is very important because if you don't tell him that he should not provide you with more properties, he will be very creative and maybe invent new kind of properties. This is strict. So as you see here, we are using ChatGPT 4 Mini. You can use any other ChatGPT model. For me, this worked very fine, and it's not very expensive. So for testing, it's very good. And for the store, I tell him to not store the queries on my OpenAI account. And for tool choice, please automatically you can change it if you want to resolve the problem in a different way with more queries maybe, but I want him to be smart and I want him to help me. So this was the part where we have all the configuration. So this function SQL assistant prompt is used within the source code each time we will call the model, and we pass the new fresh database schema in this prompt. As you can see, AI isn't as complex as it maybe seems. The model does most of the heavy work for us. I highly recommend reading the code, tweaking it, and experimenting with it yourself. That's the best way to learn, at least that's how it works for me. Throughout this video and the ones to come, I'll continue exploring AI, especially from a developer's perspective. Now that we are done, let's jump into the conclusion. AI is evolving too fast, let's say. This project is just a glimpse of what's possible. We've explored how they generate SQL queries and the power of tools and function calling. Most of the LLMs today support tools and function calling, not just OpenAI. You can achieve the same result using Llama or Mistral on your local machine using Llama, for example. Crafting the right prompt is essential. To use AI effectively, we need to understand how these models are trained and go through trial and error to find the best approach. Fine-tuning when and why. Fine-tuning is useful when you need a model to be more specialized. Maybe for our case, a fine-tuned model will be a very good idea. Now, what's next? My next challenge will be building this tool with a local LLM using Llama, for example, for better privacy, control, and offline capabilities. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, whether you're a data analyst, a developer, or managing an online store. What feature would you love to see next? Please drop a comment or message me. I truly appreciate. If you find this useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Maybe someone you know is struggling with databases. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching.